Hey Kaiju fans, Tyne here, with a Kaiju profile on the first Japanese Godzilla in 12 years, Shin Godzilla. Godzilla, Gojira. The 2016 Godzilla makes his debut in Hideaki Anno's Godzilla Resurgence, also known as Shin Godzilla, where he starts off as an aquatic creature only whose tail is seen. He then adapts to be able to walk on land in his 28-meter tall second form. As time goes on, he grows visibly redder in a segue to the third form, which stands twice as tall at 57 meters. After is his fourth form, where he becomes the tallest Godzilla in film to date, standing at 118.5 meters, 10 meters taller than the 2014 Godzilla, though he's still shorter than the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. Shin Godzilla is undisputably the heaviest Godzilla as of Godzilla Resurgence, however, weighing in at 92,000 metric tons, and is also the longest Godzilla, having a length of 333 meters. Godzilla's first form is unseen in the film, aside from its tail and part of its back. The tail is reddish in color, while its back is covered in tan dorsal plates. Godzilla's second form is a light brown color and is unlike any other version of Godzilla in that he leans almost completely forward and his shoulder height is less than 1/4 of his length. This form in addition has undeveloped stumps for arms, his forearms being extremely small and completely attached to his upper arms, huge googly eyes, red gills that hang from his neck, a gaping open mouth, 10 dorsal plates, a long tail, and comparatively large hind legs. As time goes on, the second form grows visibly redder in a segue to the third form. The third form stands upright, is a dull dark red or brown color, and is almost twice as tall as the previous form. It has off-white dorsal plates, and a blood red coloration running down its back under the plates from the heat it generates. Additionally, it now possesses small forearms, and its legs are more stretched out as a result of standing upright. The fourth form is reminiscent of the original 1954 Godzilla design, with a rounded head with small beady eyes and black, scarred, and bumpy skin. This form's dorsal plates are black in color and much larger than the previous form, and also possess red scales on them reminiscent of keloid scars. The eyes are much smaller in comparison to the rest of Godzilla's body in this form, and appear sunken into their sockets, with no eyelids surrounding them. In place of eyelids, this form has silvery nictitating membranes that cover its eyes and protect them from harm. Godzilla's mouth is full of crooked and incredibly large teeth, some of which are growing from the flesh outside of his mouth. When Godzilla fires his atomic breath, his upper jaw unhinges from his lower jaw, which splits open. The arms are more developed than in previous forms, but are still very small and do not extend far beyond Godzilla's chest, which bears a prominent and pointed sternum. The legs are larger and more muscular in this form, while Godzilla's feet bear numerous small vestigial toe claws growing from their tops and sides, in addition to 5 main digits. Godzilla's flesh is covered in reddish scars and lesions that sometimes emit a reddish glow, which changes to purple when Godzilla charges his atomic breath. Godzilla's tail is very long, and has small spike-like dorsal plates running along its length. The tip of Godzilla's tail is red and bloody and covered in twisted mangled bones, with a malformed skeletal face at the end. According to the characters in the film, Godzilla is the most evolved creature on the planet, possessing 8 times the genetic information of human beings. Godzilla started out as a type of prehistoric sea creature that adapted to feed on the nuclear waste in its habitat, then continued growing and evolving over a period of 60 years. When the Japanese Coast Guard investigated an abandoned yacht floating in Tokyo Bay, the water began to erupt, causing the Tokyo Bay aqua line to collapse and become flooded by a strange red liquid. After floating numerous theories on what had caused this, eventually it is revealed that it was the result of a large creature in the bay. Soon after, the creature crawled out of the bay and into Tokyo. Stumbling around on its hind legs, the monster destroyed everything in its path. The Prime Minister deployed a squadron of helicopters to attack the monster, but when they approached it, it suddenly stood up on 2 legs and sprouted arms. The attack was called off when it was learned civilians were still evacuating the area. The monster then simply returned to the ocean. The Japanese government began creating strategies to deal with the monster should it return. while a representative of the American ambassador collaborated with a team of officials researching the monster. The representative, Kyoko Ann Patterson, revealed that the abandoned yacht actually belonged to a zoologist named Goromaki, who was researching a huge living creature moving on the seafloor. The zoologist named the creature Godzilla, meaning incarnation of God, in his hometown on Odo Island. The American Department of Energy learned of the man's research and hence dubbed the monster Godzilla. Based on this information, the researchers concluded that Godzilla was feeding on nuclear waste on the seafloor and sustained himself through nuclear fission in his body. The fission caused Godzilla to leave a trail of radiation in his wake, but also to overheat, and it forced him to return to the ocean to cool off earlier. Shortly afterward, Godzilla surfaced in Kamakura with a new form twice as tall as before. The JSDF quickly engaged Godzilla, with the Prime Minister finally giving the order to fire. However, the JSDF's weaponry had absolutely no effect on the monster, who continued heading north toward Tokyo. The US military offered to attack Godzilla instead, and after getting approval, deployed several B-2 Spirit stealth bombers to Tokyo. With their current location projected to be in Godzilla's path, the Prime Minister and his top-ranking ministers fled in a helicopter, with Rando Yaguchi and other lower-ranking officials escaping in cars. While the officials fled Tokyo, the bombers unleashed their payload onto Godzilla, visibly injuring and enraging him. In response, Godzilla's body became glowing purple, and he unleashed a powerful atomic beam from his mouth, obliterating 3 districts of Tokyo and downing the helicopter holding the Prime Minister and the high-ranking government officials. After expending such a huge amount of energy, Godzilla stopped moving and entered a state of hibernation. At the same time, Yaguchi and his research team decoded the rest of Maki's research on Godzilla, concluding that the monster had exposed so much radiation that he would be unable to move again for approximately 15 days. It was also determined that Godzilla's cells could convert air and water into a radioactive isotope that provided him with energy. Analysis of parts of the creature's flesh blasted off by the military's attack revealed that his healing factor allowed pieces of him to continue evolving and take on lives of their own, potentially meaning that the Earth could be overrun by rapidly evolving, mutated creatures if Godzilla was not stopped. With this, the American government decided that Godzilla had to be destroyed and gave the Japanese government 2 weeks to evacuate Tokyo, after which they would drop a hydrogen bomb onto Godzilla to destroy him. After discovering that Godzilla's blood and dorsal plates acted as a natural cooling system for his body, Yaguchi believed that a blood coagulant would interrupt Godzilla's blood's cooling system, causing him to perform a reactor scram to stay alive and freeze solid. The Prime Minister agreed with the plan, and convinced the French government to make the US, China, and Russia postpone the nuclear strike until the day Godzilla was to awaken. When that day came, Yaguchi officially began Operation Yashiori, the plan to use blood coagulant against Godzilla. Trains laden with explosives were sent to strike Godzilla, causing him to awaken, after which waves of drones fired rockets at him and forced him to expend his atomic energy. Buildings around him were then detonated, pitting him to the ground. Using fire trucks, the operatives force-fed Godzilla the blood coagulant, eventually causing his entire body to freeze over completely, leaving him in a state of suspended animation. The operation was declared a success, and the American nuclear strike was called off. Scientists concluded that the half-life of Godzilla's radiation was only 20 days, allowing Tokyo to recover quickly from the nuclear fallout. The Americans warned, however, that if Godzilla were to reawaken, they would not hesitate to use the H-bomb against him. As Godzilla stood frozen in the streets of Tokyo, several humanoid, skeleton-like creatures with Godzilla's dorsal plates on their backs were seen spreading from the end of his tail, reaching out to the sky. Shin Godzilla has a purple atomic breath. When firing his atomic breath, Godzilla's body, particularly his plates, glow a bright purple. Then, his upper jaw unhinges from his lower jaw, which splits apart to make room for the beam to be fired. At first, black smoke pours out of Godzilla's mouth, which ignites into a stream of flame, which condenses into a thin purple laser capable of slicing through buildings and aircraft and destroying them instantly. Once focused, the beam has incredible range, though the fire produced when it is unfocused can quickly fill up hundreds of city blocks as well. Godzilla can also redirect his atomic energy to fire numerous purple beams from in between his dorsal plates. These beams are capable of destroying objects hundreds of feet above Godzilla, and are comparable to his atomic breath in power. His atomic energy can also be redirected and fired from the tip of his tail, apparently fired from a mouth on the vestigial face at the end of it. Unlike the dorsal plate beams, the tail beam can be fired at the same time as Godzilla's atomic breath. Also, Godzilla is extremely durable and resistant to most conventional weaponry. When assaulted by the JSDF, Godzilla did not seem at all aware of their attacks and was completely unharmed. Even when bombs were directly dropped onto Godzilla by fighter jets, they were unable to harm him, though he did respond to their attacks by deploying protective membranes over his eyes. The only military weapon capable of harming Godzilla was the massive ordnance penetrator bomb, used against him by the American B-2 bombers. Though this bomb did draw blood from Godzilla and sever one of his dorsal plates, he appears to almost immediately heal from the damage. In addition, the dorsal plate that was severed was later found by a reconnaissance team in the process of regenerating on its own. The character speculated that it was possible for individual pieces of Godzilla to regenerate into functioning creatures, allowing Godzilla to rapidly spread all over the world. Additionally, Godzilla possesses a phased array radar, which allows him to detect threats without even needing to see them. Godzilla utilized this to shoot down drones trying to observe him while he was hibernating. One of this Godzilla's most unique abilities is his capacity to self-mutate his DNA to adapt to any situation. To get onto land, Godzilla mutated legs, and when transforming into his third form, he developed longer arms and stood upright. A day later, he doubled in size and had heavy armored skin, and when hurt by the American bombers, he adapted to use his atomic breath as a weapon. Finally, at the end of the film, when Godzilla was frozen, he was evolving human-like structures at the end of his tail. The reason for this is up to fan speculation, however. While incredibly powerful, Shin Godzilla possesses some weaknesses and limitations. In his third form, the nuclear fission inside Godzilla's body generated such a large amount of heat that he needed to return to the ocean to cool down. The durability of Godzilla's fourth form is not limitless either, as he was visibly injured when struck by a massive ordnance penetrator bomb dropped by an American B-2 bomber. Godzilla also depletes his atomic energy when he uses his atomic breath. If his energy is entirely depleted, Godzilla must enter a state of suspended animation which lasts for 15 days in order to restore his energy. When struck by multiple unmanned E-231 and E-233 series trains laden with explosives, Godzilla was knocked to the ground. While on the ground, Godzilla appears to have difficulty getting back up, which was critical during Operation Yashiori in allowing Trunks to pump blood coagulant directly into his mouth. The blood coagulant used during Operation Yashiori was effective against Godzilla, shutting down his internal cooling system and interfering with his internal energy production, forcing him to perform a reactor scram to stay alive and effectively freeze him solid. There's a lot to go through with this, so it's best to leave it for another time. Godzilla's first and second forms never roar in Godzilla Resurgence, but the third and fourth forms do. The third form utilizes Godzilla's roars from the original 1954 film. While his fourth form primarily uses Godzilla's roars from King Kong vs. Godzilla through Terror of Mechagodzilla in the Showa series. Just before being frozen at the film's climax, Godzilla's fourth form emits a roar from The Return of Godzilla. This Godzilla's first appearance wasn't actually in Godzilla Resurgence. Instead, it first appeared in the anime short Crayon Shin-chan vs. Shin Godzilla. Of course, Godzilla Resurgence was in development way before this episode, but it's fun to note anyways. While Shin Godzilla isn't the first Godzilla, or even the first Japanese Godzilla, to be portrayed using computer-generated imagery in part, it is the first Japanese Godzilla to be portrayed predominantly through CGI. There was no suit in the traditional sense of Shingoji, instead some simple head and tail parts for motion capture, and a giant three-man puppet that went largely unused. Godzilla's second, third, and fourth forms have received nicknames based on what parts of Japan they landed or first appeared in. The second form has been nicknamed Kamata-kun, after Kamata, Tokyo. The third form has been dubbed Shinagawa-kun, after Shinagawa Ward, and the fourth form's nickname is Kamakura-san, from Kamakura City. Kamata-kun has become massively popular among Godzilla fans, and has become a meme throughout the fanbase due to his cute appearance, even managing to be trending on the meme website Know Your Meme for a little while. Way to go, Kamata-kun. Anyway, that was Wikizilla's profile on the 2016 Godzilla. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.